Thank you. At least I made you chuckle at the beginning. And before we get started with recognitions, I've asked if we could recognize a very special person. And as a person that had a military career like I did, it is very special for me and a privilege. I would like to recognize Mr. Herschel Greenblatt, G-R-E-N B-H-A-T. Sir, if you would come up to the dais, please, so we could properly recognize you. And Herschel is a Holocaust survivor.
Good evening, everyone. That's quite a way to start our recognitions this evening. And thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Mr. Superintendent. We do have some wonderful recognitions this evening. Quite a few going to involve some students here to begin with. We're going to begin by recognizing several students for winning the first place at the state level in the K-12 division of the Georgia Tech Inventure Prize competition. And it is for their inventions. Our first winner is Aria Menon. Aria, please stand where you are. Just stand right here on the front row. She's in the K-2 division. She's a student at Eastside Elementary School, and she won first place for her team Yumpshies. While looking for a safe way to play with her baby brother, Aria developed the idea of edible plushies, and she called them Yumpshies. They are safe, delicious, and colorful characters, and her goal is to sell make-your-own Yumpshie kits that could supply families for hours of fun. Sounds like a great invention, by the way. We're going to ask that you come forward along with your teachers, Trish Morrison and Amy Murray, and Principal Maria Clark. And we're also going to have Angela Wilson, an instructional development consultant from our Assessment Personalized Learning Department, come with you. But if you'll please come forward to be recognized by the board and the superintendent. Congratulations. Our second group of Inventure Prize state winners includes Pope High School students, and they'll stand when I call their name. Armand Katami, Patrick Astorga, Tate Smith, and Krishna Bendishakara. And I think he is at college, so he is not here this evening. He's at college. These students, known as the Pope Inventor Team, were first place winners in the high school division of the Health and Medical Technology Award recipients for creating an affordable way to detect concussions as they occur by creating quarter-size microchips that can be placed in the back of a player's helmet. The chips consist of accelerometers paired with Wi-Fi modules and can send data about the impact a player is receiving in real time to the sidelines. If a player receives a concussion level impact, the chip sends the coaching staff a warning. The officials can stop the game. The athletic trainer can assess the situation to see if the player is safe to continue playing. Affordable, they're looking at it being affordable, $10 per chip. So the end goal was to reduce high school student injuries resulting from undetected concussions. That's a great invention. These young men, if you'll come forward, along with teacher Colonel Stephen Williams and principal Dr. Tom Flugum, and also, if she's not up there at the moment, we'll invite back up Miss Wilson. If y'all will come forward, be recognized by the board and the superintendent. That's impressive. Tonight we have the pleasure of paying tribute to the Georgia Science Teacher Association's Teachers of the Year level winners. And I'm going to say this again because it's the Georgia Science Teacher Association, the level winners. And in Cobb County, we have all 3 level winners for the state. So we're going to go through each one, elementary, middle, and high. They'll get individual pictures, and then we'll do a picture at the end with all of them. Please stand when I call your name. The elementary school level Science Teacher of the Year is Abby Sandlin. Abby teaches at Pittner Elementary School. Her principal, Jessica Appleyard, says, when you walk into Abby's classroom, you see students engaged in the discussion, inquiry, and using multiple technology tools. There's a tangible sense of community and family in her classroom. She is focused on engagement, exploration, explanation, elaboration, and evaluation with every unit that she teaches. And she starts each unit with an anchoring phenomenon to activate student inquiry. Her students believe that she is worthy of this award because she instills in them a love of science. So congratulations. She's going to come forward along with Principal Jessica Appleyard. And we also have our Science Supervisor, Christian Callie, and our STEM and Innovation Supervisor, Sally Creel. Will y'all please come forward to be recognized by the board and the superintendent. Next, for our middle school level science teacher of the year is Dr. Amy Gilbert from Griffin Middle School. Amy, please stand. Mr. Langston, her assistant principal, has this to say about Amy. During her tenure at Griffin, she has grown from a classroom teacher into one of our school community's most indispensable members and leaders throughout our campus. She finds opportunities to host district professional developments and bridge concepts of phenomena-based instruction coupled with interdisciplinary teaching approaches. She has organized digital field trips, aligned project-informed practices, and collaborated with professional learning communities to provide students a complete scientific experience. Outside of the classroom, she has a lot of success as well. She has earned this recognition for her ongoing efforts to support colleagues around the state. She works with the Department of Education as a life science specialist and assists with writing the middle school curriculum. She is joined by Principal Dr. Laura Lee Hill. If you will come forward, we'd like to recognize you by the board and the superintendent. Please come forward at this time. The high school level Georgia Science Teacher Association Teacher of the Year distinction goes to South Cobb High School science teacher, Tiffany Jones. Tiffany, please stand. There she is. Dr. Hurley, her supervisor, said during her time at South Cobb High School, Tiffany has stood out as a teacher leader, charismatic teacher, and respected colleague. Tiffany has completed the Gifted Endorsement, the Teacher Leadership Program, and established herself as a model teacher and a school leader. Tiffany eagerly presents at district-level professional development conferences as well as national and state conferences. She is passionate about the students, finding the time to establish herself as a mentor for her magnet students and assisting them with cultivating a love and understanding for science and research. She also sponsors activities such as the Chief Science Officers and the STEM Club and the Science Olympiad. So congratulations. She is joined by academic coach Ricardo Pachinko. If you'll please stand, if you'll come forward, I'd like to recognize y'all from the board and the superintendent. And again, I will say we had all three level winners here in Cobb County. Those are state recognition, so that's very good. Our next award, we have the pleasure to recognize the district's Procurement Services Department for receiving the accreditation for Quality Public Procurement Departments. It was formerly called the Outstanding Agency Accreditation Achievement Award. It's the 7th consecutive 3-year certification we've received. Cobb County School District is one of 4 government agencies in Georgia, one of 4 school districts nationwide, and one of 50 total government agencies to receive this accreditation. But that's not all. There's a second award as well. The second award is our Procurement Services Department received, is the Achievement of Excellence in Procurement. And this award is the 17th consecutive year, so it means it's since 2005. Cobb County School District is one of 10 agencies in Georgia and one of 19 school districts in the United States and Canada to receive this recognition. So if these folks will stand when I call your name, we'll have them all come up as soon as they're all standing. So congratulations to these. Please stand. Jill Vestal, Senior Executive Director of Business Services. Barbara Bates, Director of Procurement Services. Gary Blunt, Assistant Director, Melanie Timmerman, Senior Buyer, Wendy Bell, Purchasing Agent, Daphne Farley, Purchasing Agent, Debbie Mosher, Senior Buyer, Lori Lateef, Buyer, Craig Bayer, Buyer, and Christine Hadaway, Buyer. Congratulations to all of you. Please come forward to be recognized by the board and the superintendent. Our final recognition this evening is a very special recognition. It pays tribute to all public safety personnel. Public Safety Appreciation Week is October the 4th through the 8th. That's the week we get back from the break. The Appreciation Week gives the Cobb community the opportunity to come together and show appreciation to all of the hardworking public safety personnel. We want to express our gratitude to the district's very own devoted public safety team for all that they do. Our police department for Cobb County School District. They do so much for our students and our staff. And we have one of the largest and most well-trained staff of officers, 68 officers, available to help our students and all of our staff. At this time, when I call your name, please stand, and then you can come up and be recognized after you're all standing. Chief Ron Story, Captain Wayne Pickett, Lieutenant Mike Wilson, Sergeant Gerald Jones, Sergeant Reuben Wingfield, Officer Phil Bradford, Officer Pete Saxton, and K-9 Officer William Dooling, and Sadie. I think Sadie is with us as well. And I'll even say this, any other officers in the room, please stand as well. Any of our Cobb County School District officers, and please come forward to be recognized by the board and the superintendent. Mr. Chair, that concludes our recognitions this evening.
Wow, I feel pretty good. I met some outstanding people tonight, and I would certainly encourage any and all of the younger folks to seek out good people like Mr. Herschel Greenblatt. I hope I'm pronouncing your last name right. Just as a point of personal privilege, about 3 months ago, I met a survivor of a B-24 combat mission that crashed in the South Pacific, the Japanese shot the bomber down, and only 3 of the 10 crew survived. And I had the pleasure of meeting him about 3 months ago. So the greatest generation, those that are still around, I urge you to seek them out, hear their story. Thank you. We'll move on to public comment. Ms. Wilcox, if you'll allow me to read my statement first. This board sets aside 30 minutes of each meeting to allow members of the public to offer public comments directly to the board and superintendent on issues they believe are important to our schools. To maximize the opportunity for the number of people wishing to speak, this is not an interactive process. Board members do not interrupt, respond to, or engage with public commenters. Commenters acknowledge that public comment is not unrestricted. They agree they will not raise individual personnel issues or individual student issues. They acknowledge the board members will not react with them and agree to follow the chairman's instructions when the chair is enforcing those agreements. The board appreciates all of our community members that choose to participate in the public comment section of the board meeting. As a point of privilege as chair, I want to let the community know that I have had some very productive and collaborative conversations with Rabbi Larry Cernovitz. He and I have been discussing a potential resolution that our board could bring forward that states our values. That resolution isn't ready yet. I, of course, want to collaborate with my board members before bringing anything forward and want to take the time to get it right. But I want our community to hear that from me. Thank you. Ms. Wilcox.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our first speaker tonight is Shweta Krishnan, speaking regarding student issue. She'll be followed by Hannah Levy, speaking regarding anti-Semitism at Leicester High School.
Can I start at any time? Good evening. My name is Shweta Krishnan, and I'm a senior at Wheeler High School. I'm set to graduate in approximately 8 months, and it is a momentous time in my life that I've dreamed of experiencing. Instead of rejoicing over my accomplishments, the only thing I can think about is the fact that all of our diplomas will display the name Joseph Wheeler High School on the front. It is shameful that we will be forced to carry around the name of someone who is loyal to a government that endorsed the subjugation of Black people. We ask that you acknowledge our public comments and attempts to contact you with a proper response that does not simply state that the committee to rename the school was dissolved earlier last year. We already recognize that the dissolving has occurred as we have done our research, and we would like to move on from this response. After joining the Wheeler Name Change Initiative in January of this year, I realized that we are standing in the same position after many months of hard work. Why? Because we have been faced with continuous opposition with every attempt to engage in a conversation. This initiative is not just about what we want. It is about what our student body, parents, faculty, alumni, incoming students, and community desire to see for the future of our school. We have shouldered the majority of the work required for this initiative to move forward. The only factor inhibiting us from being successful is your clear lack of response and demonstration of care. Students, parents, and constituents should be concerned with the Cobb County Board's behavior and lack of response. It is evident that this board will continue to dismiss actions taken against minority students and will not acknowledge student needs related to these issues. As stated before, this is not a political issue, nor has this ever been the intention. It is an issue of morality and being able to create a comfortable learning environment for all students. Amend the current naming policy to allow for the community to decide an appropriate new name for our school. To reiterate, I would like a proper written response within the next 30 days that demonstrates acknowledgement over this issue and not just a simple one sentence about the previously dissolved committee.
Time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Hannah Levy. She'll be speaking regarding anti-Semitism at Leicester High School. She'll be followed by Kimberly Roberto. regarding health freedom CRT loosen restrictions.
Can I just start? Okay. My name is Hannah Levy, and I'm a sophomore at Lassiter High School. My mom grew up in Cobb County, and she, among other graduates, agree this is not the Cobb County they grew up in. When they grew up here, they didn't have to worry about students being hateful towards them because of their religion. My parents didn't even want me speaking at this meeting tonight because they're worried about a hate crime being committed against me or my family because of it. I've spoken to other Jewish kids as well as fellow minority religion kids, and none of us feel safe at Lassiter High School anymore because of the anti-Semitism that's been going on there. School is supposed to be a place where I can go and learn and be in a safe environment, but I don't feel that way anymore at my school. I don't feel safe wearing my Star of David necklace there anymore. I've been getting comments for years, but it's grown recently, and it's getting to a point where it's not okay anymore. Only 18 states require Holocaust education, according to the Holocaust Museum, and a big shocker, Georgia is not one of them. Cobb students need to learn about major historical events in history, even if they don't pertain to their religion. What is the school board going to do to fix this? Students clearly don't respect the administration if they ever thought about defacing our school with anti-Semitic remarks and comments. The school board needs to make an immediate change because the longer you wait, the more this is going to fester and the more it's going to happen. Jewish people have always been the canary in the coal mine, and we won't stand for it any longer. All of the students at Lassiter are very upset over this, and we want anti-hate and anti-Holocaust education taught at Lassiter High School and at other Cobb schools. We want the board to make it a standard to teach Holocaust education and anti-hate education. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Kimberly Roberto, speaking regarding health freedom, CRT, loosen restrictions. She'll be followed by Laura Judge, speaking regarding racism in the schools.
I couldn't hear. I think I'm next. Kimberly, right? Okay. First and foremost, I want to thank the superintendent for showing tremendous leadership, and thanks to those on the board who have supported him. For the rest of the board and those who are still showing up here trying to mask, vaccinate, and indoctrinate kids, I'll direct the remainder of my comment to you. You will be on the wrong side of history. Instead of an educational learning environment, kids have been thrust into a political and medical one. All of this is a huge distraction, disservice, and a colossal waste of time and energy. I was in the emergency meeting called by the Cobb Board of Health to put pressure on the superintendent, and I was astonished. It was the same rhetoric, narrative, fear-mongering information that can be found on any mainstream news media source. I'm appalled that doctors and medical professionals still focus on case rates and mask narratives. It has become a case-demic rather than a pandemic. The information presented was hardly a case for any kind of mandates. I refuted it all in an open letter to them, 8-page letter, which you all have a copy of. And in an act of complete hypocrisy, Dr. Memark didn't even wear a mask for the entirety of the meeting. We are still testing asymptomatic individuals, using inaccurate tests with false positives, enforcing inconsistent quarantines. I have a deep concern for children's well-being and emotional state. The trauma is heartbreaking and wrong. The fact that the health department or any mask proponents never mention this is unacceptable. People don't want their kids subjected to mandates, to contact tracing, to adults throwing temper tantrums, to indoctrination, to a failed medical model or critical race theory. It's time for kids to be kids and convert hospital wards back to school and classrooms. If there's any good to come of all of this, it's open people's eyes. Any hidden agendas will be revealed and scrutinized and not tolerated. An open record request revealed that since 2019, when this all started, 2,242 students have withdrawn from Cobb schools to go private or homeschooling, and it'll continue if our freedoms keep getting taken away. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Laura Judge, speaking regarding racism in the schools, be followed by John Pumbly, speaking regarding TBD, likely cognia.
Thank you, board and superintendent. My name is Laura Judge, and I'm a parent of 2 students here in Cobb County. The incidents of anti-Semitism that occurred in at least 2 of our schools, followed by the silence of this board until today, while members of our community are asking for it to be addressed, brings the need for diversity in education to the forefront. Around the time the anti-CRT resolution was passed by the school board majority, anti-bias educational programs like the Anti-Defamation League's No Place for Hate was erased from the school buildings. Resolutions like the one the majority members of this board have passed are preventing open and honest dialogue in classrooms. Anti-Semitism can be defined as the marginalization and oppression of Jews. By not calling out anti-Semitism for the act it is, we allow hate to flourish in our community. What happened in our school buildings was exactly that, anti-Semitism. Listen, I hope we all can agree that we want to teach our children what is right. But I want you to ask yourself today, how do you teach a child what is right without explaining what is wrong? You cannot ignore or brush under the rug the wrongs that have been done in history and expect a child to avoid making those same mistakes when the wrongdoing has been hidden from them. There is no guilt to be had for something you did not have a hand in. However, there is plenty of guilt for wrongdoings that you let happen today or be silent when you see it happen. For these acts to happen during the week of Yom Kippur, the holiest day of the year in Judaism, shows that there's a greater need for cultural understanding and sensitivity right here in our district. Will the board commit to reinstating the educational programs designed to address the type of discrimination occurring in our schools, such as No Place for Hate? I request a response to my question in writing in 30 days. Thank you.
Our next speaker is John Pumbley, speaking TBD regarding likely cognia. Following will be Alan Seelinger regarding our shared humanity.
Ms. Wilcox, would you restate the name for the audience, please?
Absolutely. Our next speaker is John Pumbley, speaking regarding TBD, likely cognia, followed by Alan Seelinger regarding our shared humanity.
Leadership is solving problems. The day soldiers stop bringing the problems is the day you stop leading them. Colin Powell. Effective leadership is not about making speeches or being liked. Leadership is defined by results, not attributes. Peter Drucker. My responsibility is getting all of my players playing for the name on the front of the jersey, not on the back, unknown. So leadership is stable and patient. It's listening to those that must carry the vision, and it's unifying around the name on the front of the jersey. It's not always popular with every person, and it's defined by results. I would like to thank the administration for all the above and for creating the best results for the highest number of kids, notwithstanding what we've talked about earlier. Your decisions are not always popular with everybody, but they are supported by outcomes. In the case of the mass choice, the data compared to districts with and without mandates supports your decision. I hope you continue to use data-based decisions with the lens of outcomes instead of the lens of fear or conjecture. The next great issue in our schools is the cognitive review. If great leadership is shown through results, our schools are near the top of the list for virtually every success metric. So it makes you wonder why a group would call for a review. To me, it's clearly because, based on their criteria, they clearly don't consider our schools as successful, but as failing, and worth the risk of losing accreditation. It's not really an opinion, it's simply the only rationale for that sort of dangerous review. That said, we should listen closely to these board members, and they should tell us in their own words why they called for this. How is it that they measure success or failure? It's a great learning environment, productivity, and student success, or is it some sort of other distorted metric with no proven basis for success? We deserve to know exactly what they think. Will they treat all of our children as important, or will they choose to select a group here and a group there and tell them they're more special than others? Will they support curriculum that's factual and allows for debate on issues, or will they instead choose to create an atmosphere of illiberalism, control, and indoctrination? We will be watching, working, and definitely voting on what we see.
Time.
I truly hope that Cobb will continue to be a great school system. That will only happen if there is consistent vision, one goal, one team, student success.
Our next speaker is Alan Seelinger, speaking regarding our shared humanity, followed by Tova Ringland, speaking regarding special needs.
My name is Alan Seelinger, and I am a co-founder of Families Against Racism. we stand in solidarity with the Jewish community in Cobb County and want to likewise express our outrage and disappointment at the woefully inadequate response of our county school leadership to the recent incidents of anti-Semitism at Pope and Lassiter high schools. So many speakers and organizations have already expressed these sentiments recently. Just this afternoon, Rabbi Cernovitz, Rabbi Dorsch, and several Cobb parents expressed their pain and pleaded with this board and the superintendent to do more. Many in the Jewish community feel unheard and unseen. Students have said that they don't feel safe in their own schools. We ask the board and the superintendent to do three things. We ask you to move toward those in pain and listen. We ask you to name this evil. It is hateful, racist, violent, anti-Semitic, Nazi propaganda. To have any hope of healing, we must name the wound. And finally, we ask you to act. It is one thing to reiterate the district's values and say that you oppose anti-Semitism, but we are asking you to act on those values. A stated value is important, but an actual value shows up in how you spend your time and your money. An actual value should be on a board meeting agenda. If you value making Cobb schools welcoming, please reinstate the No Place for Hate program. If you value student safety, please put it on the agenda. This is about our shared humanity. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Tova Ringland, speaking regarding special needs. She will be followed by Christine McKinnell, speaking regarding appreciation.
My name's Tova, and I'm speaking as a special needs mom. I'm speaking trying to make changes so other families don't go through what mine did. I appreciate that Cobb County School District's listening and starting to take positive steps. In June, school resource officers received additional training about special needs students like my son. In July, teachers who work in small group classes that serve students on the autism spectrum and those with intellectual disabilities received additional training and the directive not to call the school resource officer directly. While I appreciate the steps that have been taken, more work must be done. On July 25th, a 15-year-old nonverbal student on the autism spectrum was not rewarded per his behavior plan, and instead he was expected to wait for the reward. He became frustrated and acted out. Incidents like this happen frequently. It does not help that many classrooms are short-staffed. Newer paras are often undertrained about behavior and behavior intervention plans. Substitutes are often not trained at all. The mother of this child received a call informing her of her child's behavior and sadly stating that the school resource officer could become involved. No parent should be traumatized by the fact that her disabled child could become involved in the juvenile justice system. All administrators must receive training about individual students' behavior intervention plans and disabilities. Classrooms must be staffed to allow plans to be followed and to meet students' individual needs so they can receive a free, appropriate public education. The county needs more board-certified behavior analysts and registered behavior technicians so that behavior can be addressed promptly by individuals highly trained in behavior. Cobb County School District must do a better job for these students. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Christine McKinnell, speaking regarding appreciation, be followed by Aviva Lebo-Woolmer, speaking regarding take a stand against anti-Semitism in our schools.
Good evening. My name is Christine McKinnell. As the Cobb County Chapter President for No Left Turn in Education, I want to be very clear. We are nonpartisan and diverse, like our school board. As a parent and stakeholder in CCSD, I believe us to be #1 in the state and only second in size. Being in Cobb County, we constantly get compared to Marietta City Schools. Expecting a system with 107,379 students to be the same as a 9,000 student district would be simply ignoring the differences. Are they both great? Yes, just different. Like our school board. In order to remain on top, we must embrace our differences, focus on our similarities, and work together as one community. Before me are leaders with wisdom, experience, new ideas, and the courage to create and uphold the policies that run our 112 schools. Behind me are leaders, parents, grandparents, business owners, and Cobb residents that are stakeholders in our schools, all 112 of them. They look different,
30 seconds.
Worship different, vote different, and parent different. From front to back and left to right of this room, there is one glaring similarity, wanting what is best for the students of Cobb County. Honestly, does one single person in this room want to see a student fail? The wedge being driven between us must stop now. Are we not stronger than political party lines? Can we not work together respecting our differences? We are the adults.
Time.
We need to start acting like it.
Our next speaker is Aviva Lebo-Warmer, speaking regarding take a stand against anti-Semitism in our schools, followed by Sana Saunders, speaking regarding Wheeler High School.
Thank you. I have asked any rabbis that are present tonight to please come stand with me as I speak. My husband and I specifically moved to our home in East Cobb for 2 reasons: to be near great public schools and to be near our synagogue. Our son is supposed to go to Mountain View, Simpson, and Lassiter high schools. I say supposed to because it was our desire for our child to go to an excellent public school that is very diverse. We want him to have interactions with other children from different races, ethnicities, sexual orientations, and different backgrounds. I have a very hard time, though, wanting my son to go to schools where the school district is not taking anti-Semitism and racism seriously. Diversity is critical, and with that comes tolerance, love, and inclusion. There is no place for hate in our schools, our work, our counties, or our country. I was born in East Cobb and grew up in Atlanta. Even growing up in a private school, a more sheltered environment, I was told many times that I needed to convert or I would go to hell. Their comments were ignorance, lack of education, lack of sensitivity training, and awareness of others. Those conversations made me squirm. I can only imagine walking into a bathroom full of swastikas or any of the other stories that I've been recently reading and hearing from kids in Cobb County. I'm not okay with anyone experiencing that kind of ignorance and hatred, and I certainly do not want to send my son into that environment as he gets older. Differences are what make us great,
30
and
seconds.
understanding what makes us each unique is what makes this country and this world better and stronger. I'm asking that the school board provide us answers on what they are going to do to prevent incidents like these from continuing. What will you do to make sure my son and his Jewish classmates feel comfortable coming into your schools? What are you going to do? What programming are you going to put in place so that we can leave ignorance, move to tolerance, and eventually understand one another well enough to have love and acceptance? As a school board, you have the ability to demonstrate this through taking action.
Time.
Please show love, not hate. I have the petition that has been going around. I don't know how to turn it in.
Our next speaker is Sana Saunders, speaking regarding Wheeler High School.
There we go. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Sana Saunders, speaking regarding Wheeler High School, followed by Harini Vijay, speaking regarding the importance of a name.
Good evening. My name is Sanaj Sanders, and I'm currently a junior at Wheeler High School. Our initiative has made face at these meetings many times before, and we've extensively articulated the moral and factual significance as to why our school's name should be changed. So for tonight, I feel the need not to reiterate those points entirely, but instead mainly speak on the lackluster communication we've received from the board pertaining to this important issue. It has been over a year since our initiative was brought up to the board. Over the summer, we've sent droves of emails, and yet our legitimate grievances aren't even worthy of majority responses. Out of the 7 board members currently acting, only 3 have had the wherewithal to even acknowledge our effort. It's quite frankly ridiculous that a board meant to listen to the grievances of the community can't give the time of day towards an issue negatively affecting the community. We have come to a multitude of these board meetings over the past year, some while in the height of a literal pandemic, to deliver research and voice diverse community perspectives and opinions. Does that not show our seriousness towards this matter? We need consistent and productive dialogue. Stonewalling this issue is not the way to continue on moving forward. It only creates a further dragging out of a relatively simple problem with a quick solution. Amend the current naming policy to allow for the community to decide an appropriate new name for our school. The fact of the matter is, ignoring the honoring of a Confederate general fighting to keep chattel slavery legal is an active position against inclusion, against all of the minority students attending Wheeler. Your apathy is seen and felt by the community, and it is a direct opposition for progress. Do the right thing. I would like a written response in the next 30 days that responds to the issues I've brought forward tonight, not just an observation I was here or a repeat that the committee was dissolved. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Harini Vijay, speaking regarding the importance of a name, followed by Jennifer Susko, speaking regarding some student success.
Good evening, my name is Harini Vijay, and I am now a senior at Wheeler High School. I begin with this transition in order to emphasize to you that despite the rest of our lives progressing, we still find ourselves in the same battle that we were in 14 months ago. We have yet to even start an open conversation with you regarding a name change, and you have only complicated this process by refusing to explain your perspective. We ask that you amend the current naming policy to allow for the community to decide an appropriate new name for our school. The name change process, in a broad glance, consists of these 2 checkpoints. First, amending the policy for renaming institutions, and second, deciding on a new name as a community, as this was neglected when our high school was originally named. It's truly that simple and well within the scope of responsibilities for this board. Your lack of response does not impact merely those advocating for a name change. Your lack of response only demonstrates the weakness in your commitment and capacity to support the entire community. By neglecting our needs for the past 14 months, you proved to the entire community that, should they need it, you have no interest in prioritizing their needs. Throughout this summer, we sent you all emails 3 times a week. Each of you received several emails from at least 1 student within your jurisdiction. To have only received responses from 3 of you, despite representation from constituents of the whole board, is more than concerning, as it shows us exactly how much you value our voices. Begin a line of communication with us, at least by stating why you continue to resist our initiative. We have, after all, stated time and again that communication and transparency are key. In the span of these 14 months, we have done the research for you, have presented you with data, statistics, and plenty of anecdotal evidence from not only us, but the rest of our community as well, including current Wheeler students, students from other schools, parents, alumni, and even individuals who don't reside in Georgia. We think it's your turn now. Wouldn't you agree? I would like a written response in 30 days that does not merely acknowledge my presence here tonight. Thank you for your time.
Our next speaker is Jennifer Susko, who will be speaking regarding some student success. She'll be followed by Zoe Sheppers, speaking regarding actions above word.
TikTok challenge. Tell me your school district leadership is racist without telling me your school district leadership is racist. The board chair bans CRT and doesn't even know what that is. A board member calls COVID the China virus. The superintendent tells principals that student athletes who protest anti-black racism will have their beats benched.
Ms. Susko, I'll give you your time.
Good.
But I'm not going to allow you to call out individual members.
Okay, I'll say
superintendent or me or anyone else.
Okay, I'll say
so
members.
Please be respectful.
Members,
Thank you.
okay. The leader of the school district thinks, actually, let's go back to that one. The leader of the school district tells principals that student athletes who protest anti-black racism will have their beeps benched. The leader of the school district thinks you got to treat people right is an equivalent to saying Black Lives Matter. The board won't ban a Civil War dress-up activity where black students are called slaves, that is, not without national media scrutiny and relentless advocacy by a heroic black mom. This district absolutely tolerates hate, contrary to the superintendent's leader's laughable claim this afternoon. It promotes hate. It banned educators' ability to help students through incidents of hate. I held a meeting with Jewish stakeholders and shared the backstory of how Cobb removed programming aimed at combating anti-Semitism, like that which occurred at Pope and Lassiter, the behind-the-scenes fiasco where you deployed executive cabinet to demand school counselors not only end the anti-bias program, No Place for Hate, but also that they abruptly remove any reference to it and trash it. I exposed this shady maneuvering to convey how any district apology or resolution is insincere when it is the district leadership's own hateful statements and ban on anti-bias efforts, which create the breeding ground for anti-Semitism and racism in schools. I assume I get a little bit longer. Stop with the theatrics. Don't tell the Cobbaganda, AKA communications team, to release a statement about how important it is for Cobb to show that they include all stakeholders when a leader openly slanders immigrant families, calling them illegal aliens. When you finally leave, just proudly stand by the legacy that will always follow you. One team, one goal, white Christian student success.
Time. Our next speaker is Zoe Shephers, speaking regarding actions above words. She'll be followed by Amy Buchanan, speaking regarding mass choice.
Good evening. My name is Zoe Shepard, and I'm a senior at Wheeler High School. For over a year, the school board has communicated that they could care less about what the name of Joseph E. Wheeler High School represents, and I would like to draw the community's attention to how this has real-life implications in our schools. This board has communicated that it is appropriate that a man who fought for the Confederacy be honored as the namesake of a school with a majority black student population, a population of students whose history in America includes 400 years of slavery, then Jim Crow, segregation, inhumane medical experimentation, and more. As I've said before, the utter lack of response has conveyed complacency towards issues affecting minority students across Cobb County. Now we are beginning to see the consequences of these actions. At both Pope and Lassiter High School, there have been incidents of vandalism brandishing swastikas and anti-Semitic language, incidents which have also been met with a lack of transparency and cultural sensitivity, a response that has been characterized as, quote, minimizing the intergenerational trauma suffered by the Jewish community, end quote, which mirrors the response to this initiative concerning the commemoration of a man who fought for the preservation of slavery. This is not new. This board has yet again trivialized the impact of symbols of white supremacy. This is what happens when you don't reflect in your actions that you are working to create a safe and respectful environment for all students, faculty, and staff. This is what happens when diversity and inclusion are a suggestion instead of a priority. We as a community have a responsibility to our students to ensure that this board no longer be allowed to normalize and foster an atmosphere that is not just dismissive of, but openly hostile to minority students. No teacher at any Cobb County school would be allowed to ignore their students the way you all have ignored us. Amend the current naming policy. Amend the current naming policy to allow for the community to decide on an appropriate new name for our school. I'd like a written response in 30 days that doesn't just state that I was present and spoke during public comments. Thank you.
Our final speaker is Amy Buchanan, speaking regarding mass choice.
Hello, and thank you for allowing me to speak today. I'm a mother of 2 current Cobb County students. I'm also a speech-language pathologist of 28 years and a business owner. First, thank you for allowing our children to remain mask optional this year. We as parents desire to continue to decide what's best for the health and well-being of our children as far as masks and experimental vaccines. As flu season begins, please hear why we need to keep masks optional. In the area of communication, masks cause decreased phonemic awareness and impede our ability to read facial cues, which negatively impacts the understanding of speech. This affects not just language acquisition, but also reading and comprehension. Our focus as educators should be on closing the gap for those children who have difficulty in communication. Masks have also been linked to migraines and fatigue, lower than optimal oxygen levels, which cause brain fog and decreases focus and learning abilities, increased oral bacteria causing gum disease and dental caries, increased sinus issues, facial infections, and acne, and increased fear, anxiety, and other mental health issues in children, adults, and especially those with special needs. I have links to all of these studies if you would like them. Finally, I'd like to discuss Second Steps, which is another social emotional learning platform. This Second Steps curriculum is full of ideology designed to change students' values, beliefs, and behaviors. Teachers conduct assessments of children's social and emotional development, often without parental notice or consent. I am asking for full transparency. Curriculum is supposed to be on the school website, including ISBN numbers.
30 seconds.
It is a parent's right to see all curriculum. Public schools should be academic focused and allow parents to guide the moral, ethical, and emotional education of our children. We say no to SEL and Second Steps. I'm requesting a written response to my comments here today, please. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, that's our final speaker for the evening.
I want to thank all of our speakers tonight. Very passionate, sincere. We hear you. We'll take it to heart. Thank you again. We have items requiring following action is what you...
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I'm going to ask our Chief HR Officer, Ms. Keely Bowen, to bring all items requiring action following executive session.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent, Mr. Chair, and members of the board. It is my pleasure to bring to you the Human Resources Personnel Report for today, September 23rd, 2021. The administration recommends the approval of the identified employment actions of those individuals listed on the Personnel Action Report as discussed in executive session. We do not have any principal level or higher position recommendations today, so this concludes the Human Resources Personnel Report.
Get a motion. Mr. Wheeler?
You ready?
Yes.
Okay, I was waiting. I move that the Cobb County Board of Education uphold the hearing officer's decision.
Wait, time out. We need a motion for the personnel items as presented.
Yep.
That'll be a separate.
Okay.
Hang on. Mr. Chastain.
Right. Mr. Chair, I move that we accept the superintendent's personnel report as presented.
Okay, and the chair will second it. All those in favor, or we really don't need all those in favor? I'm showing 7. Okay, opposed? None. Okay, now, Mr. Wheeler.
Okay. I move that the Cobb County Board of Education uphold the hearing officer's decision in the student discipline matter as discussed in executive session.
Mr. Wheeler's made the motion. Mr. Banks is second. All those in favor? Showing 6 in favor. All those opposed? Showing 1 opposed, no abstentions. Okay, Mr. Ragsdale.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I want to, again, as you did, Mr. Chair, give another shout out to Mr. Herschel, who's still in the back. Appreciate you, sir, and everything you have stood for and gone through. And appreciate the conversation we had earlier. I really do. Also, tied to that, I want to, again, provide the statement on the incident regarding the anti-Semitic graffiti. And let me start out by saying I want to be very clear. This school district does not and will not tolerate hate in any form. Following an investigation, the administration has brought disciplinary charges against those responsible. The matter is proceeding through the disciplinary tribunal process required by Georgia law. I cannot report on the particulars of the incident further at this time, as the administration's discipline recommendation is sufficiently significant that the board's members could likely hear it on appeal. I understand this may have begun as some sort of social media dare. I appreciate that statistically in a district of 110,000 students and 114 schools, incidents like this may occur, and they are extremely rare in CCSD. Regardless, the district refuses to dismiss this incident as some sort of prank. The 18,000 staff members of this district work exceptionally hard to ensure this is an environment where all students are welcome and appreciated. This is supported by the board, which mandates reporting incidents of this nature. Some may consider our response unduly punitive. I disagree, however. It reflects the importance of this district's schools being environments in which all students have the opportunities for and from an international competitive education, and our expectation behaviors like this will not occur. I respectfully request the board members withhold comment on the specific details of the incident until after the board hears any potential appeals. Otherwise, it may provide an opportunity for those charged to challenge the discipline. Again, is that accurate, Ms. Wilcox?
That's correct.
Thank you for that opportunity again, and I want to move into my remarks. Unfortunately, I go into, again, condolences. Is with deep sadness that we acknowledge and have already reported the passing of Ms. Dewberry, a lunchroom monitor at Burney Elementary School. Certainly our thoughts and prayers go out to her family during this time. After, again, we're recognizing that 9/11, the 20th anniversary of the terrorist attack on U.S. soil, it's now known as Patriot Day. That day, 20 years ago, we lost 2,977 lives, many of whom were first responders. I think it's appropriate that Cobb County Public Safety Appreciation Week is October 4th through 8th. We're recognizing that today as we recognized our officers in attendance and our leadership of the school district police department. Greatly appreciate Chief Story, Captain Pickett, Lieutenant Wilson. I can't say enough about the professionalism that our officers bring to this district and to the profession of law enforcement. Greatly appreciate that. You know, again, just as I mentioned on Memorial Day, lowering the flag to half staff is always just a reminder of how good we have it in this country, but unfortunately a reminder of the fact that all gave some, but some gave all. And I think it's incumbent upon us to take time to remember and especially respect all of those who are serving, whether it's in the military as active, veterans, first responders. We greatly appreciate you. I can't say enough about the professionalism, again, of our force. I greatly appreciate everything you do for us. All right, so I'm going to move into kind of a different update today. I'm going to be bringing an update for COVID-19. And I'm changing the process today as I bring this update. And you might ask, well, why now? Why change the process now? You have been communicating via the webpage, via the weekly updates. I started this process last week when I communicated to our team members and to the community at large through our weekly update about the numbers that we had been seeing drop dramatically in our school district. We're very pleased with that drop. Unfortunately, what is driving this change in the way that we're bringing updated information is, unfortunately, we have witnessed as recent as over the last couple of weeks, some organizations choosing to make decisions based upon emotion and or politics. While I have been accused of making decisions based on politics, this district has been utilizing data to drive the decision-making process. Regrettably, accurate data has been lacking in presenting a full picture of our current environment. So today, I will be showing some of our data that has been utilized thus far. And I will also be making these slides available on our webpage tomorrow and linked into the weekly update that is going out. Next slide, please. I said please. Starting out with part of the problem today. It seems that false information is picked up quicker than accurate information. As you see on this slide, the 3 steps that provided this false headline. A state epidemiologist made the comment of 60% of outbreaks are in Georgia schools, which in and of itself can mean as few as 2 students testing positive in one place and does not have a direct tie to the overall number of cases. Number 2, a reporter says 60% of new cases are in Georgia schools. And then that false report gets picked up by multiple outlets, including CNN. So this is not just a local newspaper out in the country somewhere that just happened to make a mistake. This was very widespread. And local citizens, upon catching the error, confront media outlets, and some have still not corrected the false headline. And what's the result of that? Parents and students are left greatly concerned by a false report that exaggerated actual case spread by over 300% when cases were actually falling sharply. That is why I'm trying to bring accurate information to the public to consume about our current situation instead of the false information that is being spread. You can see on this same slide, 1 week ago, that's the headline. Yet today, in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, greatly appreciate this article. Atlanta area school districts report a sharp decline in COVID cases. Next slide. Now, this graph may look familiar as it was in my weekly update last Friday. However, I want to reiterate what this graph shows and bring a little bit more information to the forefront. Cases among all Cobb students and staff are down 44% in the last 3 weeks and have fallen in 90% of Cobb schools. Again, over 97% of students and staff are COVID-free. Yet to hear the data being presented would seem to be the exact opposite of the actual situation. Candidly, the graph you're seeing covers the time period from August 27th to September 17th. Interestingly, in the middle of this graph is when the emergency Cobb Board of Health meeting was held. Now you might be asking, well, why wasn't this discussed during that meeting? Since obviously the numbers were already falling and falling to the point of accumulating to a 44% fall. Next slide. Now, I apologize for the complicated busyness of this slide. However, it's a good thing because the busyness on the far right side of the slide shows that all of these districts are falling to the same cases per capita. Now, I've referenced on the bottom of the slide, which you can read. I'll read it once, but I won't read it again. You can see it online when we place these slides on our webpage. Per capita student infection rates equal the cases divided by enrollment, adjusted for community spread, and obtained from the following sources: COVID-19 information portals, Marietta City, Atlanta Public, Fulton County, Douglas County, Georgia Department of Public Health. And the reason that these numbers and these districts are represented is these districts represent the data in similar and accurate formats so that you can compare apples to apples instead of how some media outlets have attempted to do, compare apples to, I don't know, dump trucks. And that's not a very accurate comparison. However, what you see represented here is a significant drop in cases. Now, interestingly, on this slide, Cobb is the only district where masks are optional and have been since day one. But what you will notice that's interesting is at the end of the slide, from that time period of September 17th from August 27th, you can see that the cases per capita have dropped to 0.004, 005, and 006. Now again, there are 3 districts in the middle where Cobb is one that have dropped to 005. So again, I apologize for the data, or the numbers rather, overlapping. I don't apologize for the data overlapping because that's a good thing. Now, one of the questions that you may be asking looking at this slide is, well, wait a minute. Maybe if Cobb had required masks, we might have dropped even further than 44%. And that's a very valid question. Next slide. Because what you're looking at are school districts in the entire metro area that dropped to a similar point at the end of this time period of September 17th. Now, some districts that are represented here dropped as much as over 70% compared to our 44% drop. So again, you could be asking, why didn't we drop further? And perhaps a mask mandate could have caused us to drop further. Next slide. The reason we didn't drop further is because our peak spread was much lower than any of the other school districts represented here. So as you see, our peak represented on the left side had the lowest peak in the Northwest corridor. But the takeaway from this slide is regardless if you as a school district drop 70%, 44%, 50%, 10%, the point is at the right side, as of the last Friday, September 17th, all 4 districts have statistically identical spread. Next slide. Now, I've gotten emails and heard comments about, why don't you just do what you did last year? Because it worked so well. We were able to stay in school. We had a mask mandate and everything was great. And that's a very valid question. So what you're seeing here is for illustration purposes only. This is not an accurate depiction of data or phenomena. This is what we expected to see last year. Because again, that's a very valid question. We had things in place last year. We were following CDC, CDPH guidance to the T. So we would have expected to see exactly what's represented on this slide. Cobb being significantly lower than other unmasked districts. As a matter of fact, the CDC was quoted in late 2020, CDC director, that masks perhaps would provide more protection than the coronavirus vaccination. Next slide. This is what we actually saw. Can anyone pick out Cobb? Let me help you. It's the line in the middle. So when you're looking at a comparison of these districts, Cobb was the only district on this graph to require masks. We mandated masks. And matter of fact, you can see from the box on this graph, this time period is from January through May. This encompasses the peak of the winter case surge. Now, the most important takeaway from this slide is again at the end in May. Cobb, with a mask mandate, is in the middle of the 5 districts. We have 2 districts, mask optional, that had higher spread than we did. We had 2 districts, mask optional, that had lower spread than we did. The data clearly indicates a mask mandate does not provide a significant change in the cases. Next slide. Now, some of this data has been taken from the one study that the CDC conducted on student masking in 2020, and it was conducted in Georgia for 90,000 students. And one of the results that's quoted from this study that the CDC conducted is that student masking could not be said to be effective. Most notably, requiring student masking was found to not have a statistically significant benefit. In other words, these measures could not be said to be effective. Now again, according to that study, it was the first study of its kind to compare COVID-19 incidents in schools with certain mitigation measures in place to other schools without those measures. The study was also conducted during a period of rapid spread in Georgia as the winter surge had begun, during a time where cases grew by 103% from a 2,943 average to a 5,999 daily average. The significance of comparing dozens of schools with mask mandates to dozens of schools without mask mandates cannot be overlooked. When masks were declared a public health measure, it became unethical to do a randomized control trial because people would have to agree to not wear a mask. So while everybody wants to reference articles written by this person or that person and these studies, this is the one CDC study conducted to look at the efficiency, or the effectiveness rather, of mask wearing in students, particularly in elementary schools. Again, according to the CDC, this was a, quote, first of its kind study to do a large-scale comparison of thousands of school students in the same place to assess, among other things, effectiveness of student masking. Now, the comment I made about the declaration public health measure of masks is important because, again, it prevents a controlled study of this type from being utilized again or conducted again. Next slide. This is a lot of words, but I believe it's important enough to read the entire quote, because what we have seen is the situation of people trying to use different levels of credentialed individuals to justify one side of an argument or the other. This is a quote referencing the study that I just mentioned from Dr. Alyssa Schechner Perkins, who is with the Boston University School of Medicine Master of Public Health, specializing in infectious diseases and emergency medicine and pediatric immunology, said as follows, and I quote, "We don't have data they," referring to masks, "have any impact on any important clinical outcomes in the school setting. A year ago, I said masks are not the end of the world. Why not just wear a mask? But the world has changed. There are real downsides to masking children for this long with no known end date and without any clear upside. I'm not aware of any studies that show conclusively that kids wearing masks in schools has any effect on their own morbidity or mortality or on the hospitalization or death rate in the community around them. I don't think that Delta changes the calculus because it still seems clear that it doesn't cause more severe disease, so it still doesn't change the fundamental question of what are we trying to achieve by masking kids when they are still extremely unlikely to suffer from severe illness or death if infected. And the adults in their lives have the opportunity to be vaccinated and also protected, so we don't need to worry about transmission. Even with a new variant, the onus is on those who recommend masking kids to robustly demonstrate a meaningful benefit, especially when the pre-Delta study of the Georgia schools did not find one, and where there are obvious socio-emotional and educational harms from masking children for this unprecedented duration of time." Next slide. Moving forward, one of the foundational principles of education is to engage in data-driven decision-making. And the Cobb County School District will continue with a data-driven and forward-looking process that mitigates disruptions and the learning loss it causes. Addressing learning loss is one of the most important things that we face today as an educational institution. People are, in my opinion, and many others, have dramatically underestimated the amount of learning loss that has taken place over the past 18 months and what it's going to take to catch these students up. What comes next? The Mu variant, Lambda variant, another winter surge. Our staff has not received a forward-looking process from public health officials, so CCSD will be drawing upon all available resources to prepare our community for all eventualities. As cases continue to fall, Cobb County School District will be doing a full lessons learned from the Delta variant surge. To continue being a learning organization prepared for what is coming, we must continue learning from what has happened. The news being better today does not mean it cannot be worse tomorrow, and we will strive to be prepared for whatever comes. We need to know three things: what is happening, why it's happening, and what is going to happen next. We have to have answers to those questions that are derivatives of data. Now, while most of my comments today in data has centered around masks, I want to reiterate again, this district is not, has not, nor will not be anti-mask. We strongly encourage mask utilization. We strongly encourage those that are comfortable to become vaccinated. However, we are focused on that being your decision as a parent, as a family, as an employee, to work and communicate, collaborate with your personal medical care provider in order to come up with your decision. And that's where it remains, is your decision. We will not be requiring vaccinations to be employed in the Cobb County School District. Masks will continue to be strongly encouraged, but will be optional moving forward. Now, I want to also end today with the next step that we're going to be conducting regarding analyzing data related to not only contact tracing, but quarantining. We recognize that students are missing instructional time and days due to being quarantined for something most will never become positive with. Again, when you look back at the graphs, and as you have the opportunity to look at those tomorrow when they're online, I will give kudos to Cherokee County. This is not a competition. We are in it to win it together. And when Cherokee had a 70+% drop, again, due to their peak was much higher than ours, contact tracing and quarantining, they're a much different protocol than we have. We need to understand that. We need to look at the data related to that, and we need to figure out where we need to tweak our protocol, again, given the authorization by the administrative order from Dr. Toomey and Department of Public Health. Much appreciated, because again, as it says here, and as I've already said, good news today does not guarantee good news tomorrow. We may find the situation that happens where the virus, a different variant shows up that's resistant to vaccine and herd immunity and everything else that's out there as far as mitigation strategies. And if that shows up, we need to be prepared, which we will be, we have been, and we will continue to be. But again, I felt that it was time to actually put an accurate depiction of data for our community, our parents, and our stakeholders that we will continue to use as we move forward. And again, when we're not presented with a forward-looking process, we will use all available resources at our disposal to come up with exactly that. So that concludes the COVID-19 update for today. I don't know if we will continue to have presentations like this, but I will continue to communicate to the public, to our team, to the stakeholders in the weekly updates should the data situation change, and I'll keep you abreast of what those changes are. Now, you have also, on to much better news. We've already heard about CCSD and our SAT scores. We've done a press release. You've seen the acknowledgments in the media. We were the 5th highest in the state of Georgia. We were the highest Metro Atlanta school district. And despite the challenges related to the pandemic, Cobb students and teachers remain focused on academics. The average SAT score we posted was 1150, which is 43 points higher than the 2020 district average. They also, Cobb students also outpaced their peers in the state by more than 70 points and outperformed the national average by 112 points. When I say we have the best teachers in the world, we have the best teachers in the world because the proof is in the performance and student success, which is our one goal, which is attained on a daily basis. Now, we have also talked about the challenges that we have seen in attracting employees, as every other district has been encountering, and unfortunately has gotten much worse as compared to last year. So we actually have already put into place, and I've already mentioned it, about the bus driver retention bonus that we have in place. We're also putting in place a food service retention bonus, and we have put into place a raise for substitutes, not only substitute teachers, but substitute nurses and the like. And today, we have had over 700 people apply to substitute since we announced the pay increase on October 31st. And as a result of that increase, CCSD pays the highest sub-pay in the metro area, and our sub-fill rate has increased to near 70%. Just like on the COVID update, good news today does not guarantee good news tomorrow, but we will be prepared to pivot should we need to and make the additional accommodations should we see that the situation demands it. For the third year in a row, the Cobb County School District has continued to earn a spot on the Forbes list of best employers in Georgia, specifically as the best K-12 school district to work in Georgia and the only school district in the top 25 of best in-state employers. The Forbes ranking again for the third year in a row reinforces and reiterates that Cobb is the best place to teach, lead, and learn. And I want to thank all of our employees for making Cobb the best place to teach, lead, and learn. I want to wish everyone a wonderful fall break, which is next week. But I want to take it a step further. I'm actually announcing tonight, as many of you know, many of you don't know, when you hear fall break, you just automatically assume that everybody is on break, and that's not the case. However, it is today. I'm declaring that next week will be a wellness week, and all of those that would be reporting will not be reporting. We expect you to spend time with your family. It's extremely important to have a fully rested and energized staff that can attend to the needs of over 110,000 students and 18,000 employees. It's extremely important to make sure all of our employees are well and focused. And so I want everyone to be able to take next week to do exactly that. Now, we will still have some employees working on specific projects, and those employees will receive direction and communication from their division leads about how those wellness times can be attributed to those small number of employees who will be working on some specific projects. But I also want to recognize the staff and students who will be participating in our Fall Learning Quest. It's a program focused on extending learning opportunities and our commitment to student success. This program will be unaffected by the Wellness Week and will continue as planned. So with that, I just want to say a huge thank you to all of our team, including community members, because community is part of our team as well. I greatly appreciate all of the support that this school district as an organization receives. I appreciate all of the hard work that every employee is putting in on a day-by-day basis. Everyone is working above and beyond to make sure that we can continue to have school in the middle of a pandemic. It is tough. It's always been tough to be a teacher, but to be a teacher in the middle of a pandemic is extremely difficult. And I appreciate all of our teachers, and I appreciate all of our team members. And I wish everybody a safe, restful fall break, because it will be a minute to make it to Thanksgiving. So please rest and come back re-energized. And with that, Mr. Chair, I conclude my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Ragsdale, and some great information. Moving on to item number 7, our action agenda.
Mr. Chair.
Action items.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
I know you didn't look up, but there's a lot of important information. As you know, we've been asking for months about a COVID update, even this morning, and then we get a surprise report like at 7 something, 8 o'clock on today. And so I think it would be nice to have a little bit of a Q&A so we can discuss it, because he just mentioned he doesn't plan on doing a report like this in the future. But you very quickly went on to the next subject. So I was wondering, were you curious? Did you have questions? Because we're all hearing this for the first time, maybe not you.
Mr. Chair, if you will, I'll make a quick statement, I think, and then we can move forward. So one correction, I didn't say that I wouldn't be making another presentation like this. I said, I may, but it's not a given. Secondly, you're right, there is a lot of data that was presented tonight, and I would be more than happy to give the board time. Again, this is going to be presented online to digest the data. Be happy to have any conversations one-on-one with any board member as you like. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Ragsdale. And,
the question was for you, Mr. Chair?
Pardon me?
The question I had was for you.
Yes, and you made mention that I was quickly moving on. At my age, I don't quickly do much, so I wasn't quickly moving on. I was trying to move the meeting on, okay? Now, the chair's going to make a decision that we're going to have time to digest what we've heard, and the chair's not going to entertain questions at this time with the remarks that made by Mr. Ragsdale. So moving on to agenda item number 7. Dr. Howard, you are out of order, sir. Dr. Howard. Now the chair will make a statement. We have in this wonderful new facility excellent corridors. If they so desired that they generally wanted to make a statement, they could have quietly left from either side. So I'll leave the conclusion in your good hands, those that are here. Moving on to item number 7. Moving on to number 7. Action items number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 are on the consent agenda and without objection have been adopted. That leaves us with action item number 6.
Yes, sir. Oh, sorry.
Oh, Mr. Ragsdale.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chair, members of the board, I'm going to ask Mr. Mark Smith to come and bring action agenda item number 6.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chair, members of the board, Mr. Superintendent, as read earlier today, agenda item number 6, the recommendation for approval to award a contract for the conversion of the original Wheeler High School theater into a robotics lab. In accordance with the approved SPLOS 5 program for dedicated spaces to establish a robotics program in high schools, the conversion of the original theater is needed. Award of a contract at this time will allow the project to remain on schedule. Scheduled substantial completion date for this project is March of 2022. We had a number of 4 bidders for the project, with the recommended bidder of Bond Building Services out of Conyers, Georgia, in the amount of $377,900. It is a SPLOS 5 budgeted project, and the superintendent's recommendation to award the contract to Bond Builder Services out of Conyers, Georgia, and authorize the superintendent to execute the contract.
Okay. Since I believe the Wheeler High School is represented by one of the members, is that? Okay. Mr. Chastain, would you like to make a motion?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation to award the contract for the conversion of the original Wheeler High School theater into a robotics lab, and may I parenthetically state that the robotics team at Wheeler was one of the first in Cobb County, and it's well deserved. Thank you.
And I agree with that. Do I have a second? Mr. Banks, seconds. Is there any discussion? And it is well deserved. Seeing no discussion, all in favor? I'm showing 4, all against. I'm showing none, so the vote is unanimous. And thank you so much. Now, I did hear some comments just a few minutes ago. I will be glad to stay and talk on any questions or comments. When you are trying to talk to me from the audience, there's too much space, and I couldn't hear what was going on. So for those that want to have some brief conversation or questions for me, I'll be here for a few more minutes. And with that, if there are no objection, seeing none, we are adjourned.